What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Best Self Blueprint. So, as you all know, the mission of this podcast is to bring on people with the knowledge, insights, and experiences that'll hopefully help you move that dial towards becoming the best version of yourself, whatever that means to you. So, today we have singer, musician of the Bella Cain band, Patrick Murphy. What's going on?
Hey man, how are you? Thanks for having me.
It is my pleasure. I'm very curious to dive into, like what you were just briefly mentioning, what kind of got you to where you are today, because the Bella Cain band, I didn't realize how big the band was, especially in the area we're in. So just kind of a quick synopsis of how did you all start, and then what would you contribute that growth and success to?
So Bella Cain is coming up on year 12 of being a band. And I am in my 7th year of being in the band. So they started 12 years ago, and it's just a 5-piece. And now, from what you saw in my fest, the 8 or 9 people on stage and the complete chaos that it is, has grown exponentially every year. Our manager, Rob, has made sure to put in his 200% effort into everything, every single thing he does. He lives and breathes the band. He finds the best musicians. He finds the best festivals. He finds the best people and the best production. And there is no slacking in that guy's eyes. And he holds us all to this incredibly high standard that I don't think any of us have ever actually even achieved. But the fact that we keep getting close to it, I think, is all he needs from us.
That's exactly it, man. I think it's tough to truly hit your ideal, especially if you're pushing for such a high level, but to know you're progressing towards it, I think is where the fulfillment comes in. Now, for you personally, as a musician, what created the switch from I just have fun playing music, making music, singing, doing all that, to like, I want to go all in on making this my career and really putting all the chips in on pursuing that passion?
Yeah. So I had pretty typical like life story. Grow up, high school, college, get a job, and then work that job until I'm 70, and then hopefully have time to retire and spend my money. A wrench was thrown in my life plan, which is funny. My dad always says, if you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans. So my life plan was just to have like a typical Midwest life. But in 2019, I decided I had enough of the way I was living my life, and I admitted myself into rehab for drugs and alcohol. It was becoming just a pretty big problem for me because I was both working and playing music at the same time, and I didn't really have a lot of me outlets, I guess you should say, and I was just kind of filling a void with really negative stuff and not dealing with what I should have been dealing with. I was just avoiding it with substance. I got out of rehab after a month in January of 2020 and said that this is going to be like the best year of my life and nothing was going to hold me back. And I got this fresh new start. And then the world ended. COVID hit. So every single gig was canceled. I couldn't find a job because companies were going all remote and no one was hiring and people were quitting. And so it was just like kind of this perfect storm of just like, what have I done? And a month later, I was diagnosed with leukemia. So the hits just kept coming because I was sitting in an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting before they went to Zoom. And this older guy was telling me he quit drinking a couple months ago, and this is the best he's ever felt. And, he feels like he's in high school again. And I'm sitting there 3 months sober. Like, I feel awful. Like this physically, like mentally, I feel great. Like it's the clearest I've been in 10 years. And I just couldn't figure out why physically I just felt so bad all the time, just tired and sweaty at nighttime and lethargic and all this. And I went in and they drew my blood and just said, yeah, man, you have leukemia. So yeah. So from like, I got diagnosed in July of 2020 and I didn't start treatment until October of 2020. But for 6 months, they were convinced with the type of leukemia I have that it was impossible that I have it. So they did every single test imaginable. Like I did stress tests and they put me in a hyperbaric chamber and made me breathe a bunch to see if my lungs were functioning properly. And they like because my oncologist was convinced, he's like, there's no way you're this young, you have this type of leukemia. This has to be representing as something else. And after everything came back negative, he was like, all right, yeah, time to start chemo. So I probably like, so that the height of COVID, I think, was probably the end of summer 2020. That's when things were getting really bad. I was leaning hard on my family and my sponsors and just trying to make things work. And then once chemo started, I couldn't go anywhere because of COVID, because my immune system was so compromised. So I spent 7 months in here, either in my apartment or at Aurora St. Luke's for chemotherapy for 7 straight months. And I just had time to really just think about what I want to do with my life. And I don't want to sound like things got like really, really, really bad health-wise. Like they were bad. Like I wasn't like, they weren't like clear, like trying to revive me. But like, it made me think like, do I want to spend the rest of my life following someone else's path and helping somebody else live out their dream? Because I was a medical device sales rep for almost 10 years before all of this happened. And I loved it and I was successful, but I was sacrificing all of my time for somebody else. And it wasn't what I loved. Like I just said I loved it, but I didn't love it as much as I loved playing the guitar. And I didn't love it as much as I loved singing. And I didn't love it as much as I loved being my own boss. So once I got the nod that I was in remission and that COVID was over, would have been May of 2021. The summer just kind of opened up and music just became, I noticed like if I'm playing enough, I'm surviving. I'm not, am I going on a trip to Vegas every single weekend with extra money to burn? Absolutely not. Do I need to do that? Hell, as a sober person, absolutely not. But I just realized that life is way too short. And I know that's kind of a cliche thing, but like it really, really is. As I'm watching my parents get older and I'm watching my friends start their families and do what they want to do, I'm thinking, well, why don't I just do what I want to do? You know, it makes me happy. It doesn't hurt anybody and I'm surviving. Like those are kind of the only things that I really need. You know, I don't need a Ferrari. It'd be sweet, but I don't need one.
Yeah. First of all, I just appreciate you sharing that, because that is it like that was just, it sounds like a shitstorm of like a year and a half. So the fact that you're even like up for opening up about something that was that pivotal and that high in adversity for you, thank you. I think people even just hearing that, and then that last piece that you said after going through all of that, really it seems like what it opened up your mind and your just realm of possibility too was how much time you could actually allocate to just living life on your terms. And I think unfortunately for a lot of people, it does take getting to whatever their version of rock bottom is. It could be self-inflicted, it could be a medical diagnosis thrust upon you, it could be the world shutting down. For you, it sounds like it was just like a compilation of a lot of it. But for people who don't feel like they've hit rock bottom, it's a lot tougher to really on a visceral level take in those lessons. So for anyone listening, even if you feel like you're not at rock bottom, you're not at an intolerable level of suck, even if you're at a place that's like tolerable, but not filled with passion and joy and fulfillment, there's something that you can do to tweak that. And so, yeah, I absolutely love and appreciate you just throwing that down. Now, be just out of my curiosity, because I've had a couple instances where like one, I've done that same thing where I went down a path that was what I believed expected of me, and what I call like the should path of you should graduate college and you should get a nice paying job. And like you said, just work it until you're retired, and hopefully you've got enough money stacked away until, you know, you pass on. But between experiences like that and just living so far out of alignment, and then a couple of experiences where I just put myself in stupid situations that were life threatening, I got very similar lessons out of it, which is life is short. And not only that, but on top of, if you live a full life, you do have plenty of time in it. But if you use that time just like mindlessly watching TV, scrolling through social media, going to a mundane job, it's going to feel way shorter because you're not actually in the experiences. So I think that's phenomenal. I'm curious though, just to like dissect it a little bit. Were there specific lessons or things about yourself that you learned in each part of that? So like once you decided to pursue going sober, getting into rehab, what did that teach you about yourself? Because I'm sure there were things in terms of like mental toughness or just being present or whatever your experience was with that. What were some key takeaways you had from that experience in particular?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the biggest one was getting over myself, because people who are addicts are inherently selfish and manipulative and liars. And for, let's see, I'm 34. I started drinking when I was like 17, 18. So for like 15 years, it was Patrick Murphy's world, and you were lucky to be in it.
Mm.
That is kind of the view I had. I had a hotshot job, and I thought I was, God's greatest gift. And that only lasts so long until eventually your greatest gift is whatever substance you can get your hands on, because you're trying to just get to normal. So getting over myself, like I knew I had a problem. Like I knew the way I was drinking was not normal, probably like right after college. But I avoided it. My mother, she is 10 years sober. She and I went back and forth for years of her just being like, like this is probably a little too much. And I'm like, well, you're just jealous, like, cause you can't, like typical, like 28-year-old, like, but looking back, she was like 100% correct. And the biggest thing, other like the first step is accepting that I am powerless over drugs and alcohol. Like I can't have one beer. Like I can't. And acceptance is like this huge part of recovery. Like, and it's not only accepting the fact that I can't do that anymore, it's accepting my situational awareness 24/7. Like I have to just go with the flow. When I start to force things or try to change the narrative, that's when I start to get myself in trouble. That's when my brain is telling me, hey, we can totally slip up today and we can do this. And if things go bad, well, then I have a solution for that. And that would be have a beer. So it's acceptance is the biggest one. And that is where it all started for me.
Situational awareness is huge too. I think that's where, especially like with this audience and people who inherently are trying to continue to level up in life, that's the basis of all of it, is just how aware are you of the situation you're in and how you're responding and being triggered by every situation. That could be the people you're with, that could be the job you're in, that could be the hobbies you're pursuing, that could be the shows you're watching, books you're reading. Every little aspect of that, it requires a very intentional level of focus if you want to continue to improve yourself and just your life experience. So I think that's a huge lesson for people to take away. Is it is really easy to, like, especially I think once you're getting to a better spot, it's really easy to say, okay, I've been perfect or like really good for the past however many days, weeks, months, years. What's one day off gonna do? Now, there are certain things when it comes to, like, you do need to relax, you do need to give yourself breaks, but with the side of it that we're talking about, the toxic side, it's so much better just to abstain from it altogether than to try to input toxicity in moderation.
Right. Moderation doesn't exist for me. And that's not even including substances. It's like, if we get off this call and I grab my guitar, I will play it for like 3 hours, regardless of the fact that I need to get to sound check at, like, I need to leave here at 3:30. At like 3:15, I'll look up and I'll be like, oh shit. Like, I think it's my personality. I don't half-ass things. I just go all in until I'm like, damn, maybe I have ADHD. But I just dive right into everything I do head first, because I don't, and maybe it's the way I was raised. Like, I just don't believe in if you're gonna do something, do it. Like, don't just, oh, I'll try this, and like, stick to your word.
Heck yeah. I mean, that's a key life lesson in and of itself. If you say you're gonna do something, do it. Now, my only issue with that statement is, I think when it comes to following through on your word, I've had certain situations. I'm very big on like intuition and gut feeling. And there have been times where I've said I'll do something, and the closer I get to that obligation, my gut is just screaming at me that that is not the right thing to do. That's like the only reverse Uno card I have in terms of like staying true to what you said you were going to do, is if something really feels wrong and goes against your character, I would say follow your gut over your obligation, as long as it doesn't like hurt anybody or, any of that stuff. But okay, so when it came to sobriety, the key takeaways, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm just kind of paraphrasing, the key takeaways were just admit when you need help. Don't try to make it all about you all the time. Be very situationally aware. And then I think the other thing too is understanding who you are. So if you are someone who can handle moderation, then leverage that. But if you're someone who's kind of an all or nothing personality, I'm very much the same way. There is no like dial. It's an on or an off switch for me. So if it's on, it's all the way on. And if it's off, it's all the way off. And it's hard to have kind of an in between. Now shifting over to once you started battling health issues, and especially battling health issues in a global pandemic, because again, I'm very sure you learned a lot about yourself as you battled that and discovered more about it. What were a few of your biggest takeaways, or just things that you learned about yourself, life, the world, as you were going through that process?
I learned, so I'm the youngest of 3 boys, and I learned very, very quickly to never feel sorry for myself, because my brothers would make sure that I couldn't. And when I went through the initial stages of my diagnosis, I was just hit with tons of emotions. And unfortunately, the biggest one was like, I had a really bad case of the fuckets. Like, I was like, well, I have leukemia. The world is over. So like, who cares what I do? Like, it does not matter anymore. Like, I'll get help, and like, I'll get some chemo and maybe it'll work and blah, blah. And I wanted to just kind of drown myself in my sorrows. And my older brother was on the phone with me and he just said, yeah, man, you could go on a bender and you could, just fuck off to the other side of the world and never see us again. But like, you're still going to have cancer. Like he goes, so yeah, go ahead, go down to the bar, have fun tonight, and then wake up tomorrow and be hungover and still have leukemia. And that right there was like perspective, just like that I needed from him. Like, and I didn't even ask for it. He just kind of just put me in my place and was like, what are you feeling sorry for? Like, this happens now, like, don't feel sorry for yourself. Like, what are you going to do? And it made me, that was like, I'm so grateful that he said that to me at the beginning. I would have been grateful if he said it to me at any time, but I took that with me all the way through chemo, all the way through the times that I was by myself at the hospital, just sitting in a chair. And anytime I'd feel sorry for myself, I'd just think, well, I have cancer and there's nothing I can do about it. This isn't up to me anymore. This is so wasting my time and energy on something that I cannot change is that it's a waste. So I might as well focus on pointing my energy in a better direction. So I changed, like anytime I started to feel bad, if I was at the hospital, I just wrote, because I write my own music. Anytime I started to feel bad or lonely or sad here, I'd play guitar, or there's a piano over there. Or I mean, this is kind of weird to say, but like, this is like the best time in the history of the world to get a global pandemic and leukemia, because I was a phone call or a FaceTime away from anyone, and nobody ever screened my calls. They do now that I'm better, but during the time, like my parents, we FaceTimed every day because I'm from Minneapolis, so they couldn't be here because they're older and they have their own health issues, so they couldn't travel. And my brother, one's in DC, one's in Minneapolis. All of my friends, it didn't matter. If I needed somebody, it was just like instant. And that's like a testament to my friends and family, and just like the village, if you want to call it that, the village that I've kept and keep.
Yeah, your tribe.
Yeah, just, I mean, I've always succumbed to the fact of surrounding myself with people who are better than me at literally anything, and it'll make me better. Whether it's, I look up to my sponsor, I look up to my brothers and my parents, but I mean, Bella Cain, I am convinced I am hands down easily the worst musician on that stage. But everybody around me brings me up to this level of performance that I know for a fact I probably couldn't achieve if it was just me and a guitar, which I do every week, but like it's a completely different performance. So like just surrounding myself with people that are better than me has just been a huge game changer.
Well, and I think it's more than the sum of its parts at that point, right? Because I'm sure, like, I saw you play. You're also very much downplaying your talent as a musician. For everyone listening, he's phenomenal. But I do completely agree with what you're saying. I mean, everything you just said, but I'll start with where we're at right now, where if one of the best pieces of advice I got was, if you always feel like you're, and not egotistically speaking, but objectively speaking, if you are always the smartest in the room, the most talented in the room, you're in the wrong room. You need people who are going to challenge you and level you up and support you all at the same time. And if you don't feel the people in your circle are able to teach you about what you're looking to develop and evolve into, don't necessarily just kick those people to the curb and say, screw you. But at the same time, go seek out, whether it's new friends, coaches, mentors, whatever. So I absolutely love that. And one thing that this is, I try to give the soft touch with some of the more like hard life lessons that we go through on this podcast, but one that I'm usually pretty blunt with is, no matter the situation, you can choose to feel bad about it, or you can choose to do something about it. And so the fact that people just heard everything you went through, and you had every reason to just kind of kick your feet up and say, oh, I'm just gonna dwell on it. I'm gonna take some time and think about how much this sucks. And inherently those thoughts will creep in, but you made the choice and the decision, partially thanks to your brother. Sorry, I'm house sitting, so there's a cat. So if you hear little
Oh, okay.
jingles, it's not just me playing with stuff. But
Okay.
no, I think that's the perfect example of, no matter what you're going through, if it's an extreme short period of time, or if it's something that is coming back and hitting you day in and day out, you have a choice to either roll over and accept it, or to at least try to either change it or change your perspective about it. So I'm so glad you said that, because as someone who's not necessarily going through the ringer with anything, it's easy for me to say, oh, just, change your perspective. So I'm glad that I have someone who actually had crazy adversity to go through, who can relay that message.
Yeah, I mean, that was a giant wake up call for me, and it got me out of a lot of really dark times. And even to say, you don't have to be going through the ringer for that. I mean, like, everybody's ringer is different. And I always hate when people would be like, well, it could be worse. Like, and I was like, I don't know how this could be worse. And then I rolled my car twice on the way to the hospital in January of 2021. So I was like, maybe it can get worse.
Jeez.
but but like, and that's like, life isn't gonna, in my opinion, what I've learned is life isn't gonna wait for you, like, at all. Like, and it's gonna be hard. Like, and you have to put effort forward to make it. This is gonna sound grammatically good, well, better. I had to run through that in my head. It's just, you have to, like when you're growing up and you're little, like, a lot of things are done for you and handed to you, and like, oh, well, school starts at this time and you're gonna do this. But like, man, once life starts, nobody waits for you. Everyone's gonna do their own thing. And it's not that everyone is selfish. It's just everybody has their own path to be on. And unfortunately, if you don't put that foot forward, it's gonna pass you up. And that's not saying that every day I wake up and I'm like, here's my list of things I need to do. I'm going to get them done perfectly so that by 3 o'clock I can play music. And then by 8 o'clock I can go on a date tonight or something like that. Some days I don't want to get out of bed. Like, that's the honest truth. Like, and I have what I consider to be the best job in the world. And there are still days that I don't want to get out of bed, but I do. And there are some days when I like lay my head down at night and I'm thinking, I could have done a better job, but I still put one foot forward. So like, a big thing I preach and practice is progress over perfection.
That's one of my favorite sayings in the world right there. No, I feel the same way. I've spent years cultivating at least the rough outline of what I want my life to look like. Now, I think it's hilarious you say at the beginning, you mentioned that quote, something about like God will laugh when you come to him with your plans.
Yeah.
I think that's hilarious, because I have two very different mentalities that are happening at the same time, where I love to plan stuff out. I love to have that 1, 3, 5, 10 year projection of where I want to be and who I want to be. But then there's that other voice in my head that's that exact thing, where it's like, man, and everyone's got their own different like spiritual beliefs, but I'm kind of that same way, where it's like, God's going to put in front of you what he wants to put in front of you. And his ability to make that happen is infinitely bigger than yours. So yes, I think it's okay to plan and get ready for that stuff. But, at the end of the day, you're just going to have to go with it. That being said, getting back on tangent, I've developed the plan and executed it well enough where I'm in that same boat. I truly feel so blessed to be able to do what I do, have the impact that I have. Pretty much every aspect of my career, if you will, is exactly what I want it to be at this point. And same thing, there are still days where, whether it's, filming the podcast, I've actually never had a bad experience, surprisingly, after this will be the 64th episode.
Wow.
But like filming little monologues or going and doing my own training or going to the gym and working with clients, like you said, there's always just going to be days where you just wake up and don't want to really do much of anything. I think that's part of being a human being. But I think if you can't at least fall back on feeling good about, in general, who you are and what you're doing, that's where you need to then get out the microscope and start taking a closer look.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. And that's the finding out who I am is like that. That's like the big, like, this is a big cliche in recovery, but like quitting drinking and doing drugs is the easiest part of getting sober. Like I just don't put alcohol in my mouth. Like, there we go. I quit drinking. Unfortunately, finding out the why I drink and my character defects and the things that trigger me and want me, that is the daily work that I put in. And I'm 32 months, 33 months sober now, that I just, every day I have to think like, well, why is this affecting me? And why is this doing this to me? And what is my response? Like my default setting, which my default setting is not correct. Everyone else's is, like, for people that, aren't raging addicts, but like, I just have to, it's constant self reevaluation in my eyes. That's what it is. And that's kind of just how I can get through things, is just, it's a way, it's kind of weird. It's a way that I try to be as selfless as possible while thinking of myself the most, by being like, okay, so what is really the issue here? Is it the fact that scenario, is it the fact that that person cut me off and didn't signal their turn? Or is it the fact that I feel so entitled that the road is mine? Stuff like that. So I am in a constant battle with myself, thinking like, what is the root of this? And a lot of it, and when I say a lot, I mean like 99% of my problems are self-created in my own mind.
That's true for everybody. I gotta say, I am very impressed though at just like the level of self-awareness you have. Now, have you always had that, or is that something that you've started to kind of like strengthen the self-awareness muscle of as you've gotten into recovery?
So I've always had self-awareness in the sense that like everybody is interested in me and myself. Because I was incredible. I mean, I still am a very selfish person and I'm working on it. But recovery has taught me that like just being okay with being okay, middle of the pack, like not showing off, not lagging behind, taking life on life's terms, is just like, that is the best way for me to live my life. If things get too high, then I start to get super arrogant and then I get myself in trouble. If things get too low and I start feeling down on myself, then I get myself in trouble. But if I can keep it, just concise, Buddha-like, almost just like, yep, this is what's gonna happen, regardless of whether I do anything or not. This is what's happening. And like, it has made a complete difference on my mood and my relationships and just my overall well-being. So yeah, that's pretty much from recovery, because before this I was a mess.
I'm almost picturing like a slack line or a tightrope. Like when you first start trying to learn to walk on it, you're falling over left and right and you can't really find your balance. But it seems like you've gotten to the point where, like, for that equilibrium of mood, you found a way to walk a very like fine tightrope. And there's going to be times where like you've wobbled a little bit, but for 33 months to be able to stay on that line is really impressive.
Thank you. Yeah, it's and some days are easier than others. You know, like sometimes I wake up and I don't want people to breathe around me. Like I'm just in a mood. And then other days I wake up and it's not even an issue. So, and then everything in between. But that's the path I'm on, and it's the life I've chosen to live, and I wouldn't want to live any other way. You know, I've essentially, I said this to somebody, I think I was golfing last week. Like I erased my 20s. Like I can probably pick out like 4 key events of my 20s that I legitimately remember. And looking back, that's just not a way to live your life. Mm-hmm. Now, they fly by. Did they fly by because I was, you know, in a haze of substance? Yes, but also I was doing the same thing every single day for 10 years. And the mundaneness or mundaneness.
Oh, I'm the wrong person to ask that question.
Now I'm just rambling, but the mundane schedule, I feel like my brain just kind of accepted, like, this is what we're doing. And this is, oh, it's Tuesday. So now we have to go to this hospital and we have to do this for this doctor. And then, oh, it's Wednesday night. I guess now we go bowling and we drink a lot of beers. And oh, now it's the weekend. Like, whereas now my life is all over the place. And I just feel like as busy as I am, I feel like my life has slowed down, if that makes any sense.
Oh yeah, because you're way more present.
Right. Mm-hmm. Right. I am in the moment. I'm living it, and like I'm not worried about what's going to happen in 3 months. And I'm sure as hell not worried about what I did yesterday, because 1, I can't remember, and 2, it probably, if I can't remember, it wasn't that big of a deal. So just being present is the best way to put that.
So I got two more questions. There's one that I just ask everybody at the end, but I have one specifically for you because you really have gone all in on not just pursuing your passion with your career, but really pursuing and being intentional about every aspect of your life being set up in a way that you can look in the mirror and be fulfilled with. For someone who is in that spot that you 5 years ago were in, with like, you're working a job that like, there's nothing wrong with it, but it's not like driving passion, or someone who's just in, there's an author named Lisa Bilyeu who calls it the purgatory of the mundane. For the people who are in the purgatory of the mundane, what's your advice to them?
I would say you don't need to figure out what you want. It's because it's easier to figure out what you don't want. If what you're doing is making you unhappy, that's clearly something you don't want. And my biggest advice, and this isn't just a recovery thing. I know I've been kind of hitting that pretty hard, but it is my whole like life now. But you can't I'm convinced there is not a single thing in this planet or this life that you can do by yourself and be successful at it. Like if you're in a career dead end, find a mentor, find a life coach, do something, step outside of yourself and just ask for help, or even just a cup of coffee. Like that in itself, like, hey, I've seen that you are very successful in your career. Want to grab a cup of coffee? What did you do when this happened? And having a mentor in that, or a life partner, or a coach, or just, you know, a buddy you can talk. Like isolation, and I did it for 7 months while getting chemo, is worse than any other punishment or bad thing that like I can imagine. Like it's just awful. So, and back to the surrounding yourself with people who are better than you, like that's going to make you a better person. But like, yeah, you can't do it alone. And if you tell me you can do it alone, I think you're an asshole, and there's like, and you're lying not only to me, but to yourself.
Agreed. Because I was that asshole for a little while, especially when I started my companies. I had that mentality of, I know what I want to do with it, so I'm going to do this all on my own. And now I'm to the point where, like with the podcast, I'm always trying to bring in new people to ask questions and get their takes, and yeah, bring people in for the business side of things. But so yeah, I from experience can agree with that one. But so I've got one last question, but before I ask that, I think there are a lot of people who, first of all, if you're in Wisconsin, especially like southeastern Wisconsin, you got to go check out this band. You're hearing this from someone who doesn't go to concerts probably more than like 2 times a year. And this one was phenomenal. So for people who are looking to either like keep up with what you're doing or keep up with the band, if you want to just throw out some like social media outlets where people can link up with that.
Yeah. So it's Bella Cain, 2 words, BellaCain, Bella Cain. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok. Our website is bellacain.com. And then, and you can see all of our upcoming shows on there, and we post daily about everything that's happening. Like we have a show tonight, and I think we've already got like 5 Facebook posts. Like, so we are, our social media coordinator is on it. So you will always be able to find where and when we are playing. And then for myself, if you would like to see me play solo acoustic, you can just go to my name, patrickmurphy.rocks. Instead of .com, it's .rocks. So www.patrickmurphy.rocks is my website where you can find wherever I am playing in between all of the Bella Cain madness.
That is such a cool website name. All right. For everyone who is interested in hearing Bella Cain, which I highly recommend it, actually, like not a paid ad, nothing. I was just super impressed. Go check them out. You will not be disappointed. Now, for the last question, this is one that I just ask out of sheer curiosity. So for you right now, with where you're at in your life, what's the next step in you becoming your best self?
Ooh. That's a good question.
I love asking it.
I think the next step in becoming my best self is being more deliberate in my decision making. I have a tendency to be a people pleaser, and then at the end of the day, I sometimes build resentments, and it's not anybody else's fault. It's my own, because I'll put other people's needs ahead of my own. And I need to find the balance and the boundaries in order to differentiate the two, because I feel like I'd be more successful if I was able to say no in a larger capacity, and unfortunately be a little bit more self-centered on what I need to get done, because I will give the shirt off my back to somebody who needs help, and sometimes that takes me away from what needs to be done.
I think that's a solid next step. And I'm excited to see what you unlock of yourself as you progress down that.
Absolutely.
Man, thank you for hopping on, for opening up as much as you did, for dropping as many gold nuggets as you did. I feel like every like 2 minutes of this podcast, not when I was talking, but when you were talking, there's a key life lesson in there for people that can not just like listen to it, but directly go apply it to their life. So that was the gold standard for me of why I do what I do. So thank you for coming on. Thank you for spitting your knowledge, talking about your experiences, and just, taking the time.
Yeah, man. Thank you. This was awesome. I've never done anything like this before. So this is really cool. It got me thinking, which is sometimes dangerous and sometimes awesome.
Hopefully it leads to awesome things. If it was dangerous, I apologize. But
okay.
No, seriously, man, thank you. And for everybody listening, thank you for tuning in, especially if you make it all the way to this point. If you have any questions, comments, agreements, disagreements, things that you felt really hit home for you, throw it in the comments section. If you liked the video, there is a reason for the like button. Go ahead and click it. And if there's more episodes that you want to see down the line, or people that you want me to bring on, you can throw those names in the comments, or you can, subscribe for more videos. But thank you everybody for tuning in. and we will catch you next time.